Imagine a vibrant, intellectual landscape in the 1890s, far removed from today's corporate-dominated academic institutions. Independent thinkers and scientists like Professor L.H. Anderson operated freely. His National Institute of Science, nestled within Chicago's majestic Masonic Temple, was a beacon of unconventional knowledge. This era was a golden age for autonomous research, where innovative minds explored uncharted territories without the constraints of corporate funding or predefined dogma. Anderson's work resonated with thousands, offering a revolutionary perspective on human potential and healing. Anderson's Chicago College of Psychotherapeutics wasn't merely a local institution. It was a hub for groundbreaking research on what he termed etheric mind-body models. Unlike the burgeoning medical establishment, Anderson's approach didn't rely on pharmaceuticals. Instead, he taught self-mastery, emphasizing the human body's inherent capacity to draw vital energy from atmospheric electrical fields. This decentralized model of scientific inquiry and healing was thriving, attracting a vast following eager to explore consciousness and health outside conventional boundaries, posing a quiet, yet significant challenge. Anderson's influence spread far beyond Chicago. Through correspondence courses, his teachings reached tens of thousands across North America and Europe. Students learned to master what he called natural nervous system polarization, a technique for self-regulation and healing that bypassed commercial drugs entirely. This widespread adoption of his non-commercial, self-empowering methods presented a unique dilemma for nascent corporate monopolies. The idea of a populace capable of self-healing, independent of external products, was a financial threat that could not be ignored for long. The heart of Anderson's philosophy lay in his belief that human health and consciousness operated like an atmospheric electrical battery. This perspective meant that physical and mental well-being could be maintained without synthetic interventions or a dependence on external medical systems. His radical yet logical framework offered an alternative to the emerging industrial medical complex. Thousands of testimonials from his students spoke of profound healing and a newfound sense of vital energy, validating a paradigm that stood in stark contrast to commercialized health solutions. The independence of scientific publishing in the late 19th century allowed figures like Anderson to flourish. Researchers weren't beholden to corporate university structures, publishing their mail-order textbooks and conducting atmospheric ether experiments freely. This decentralized knowledge economy posed a direct financial threat to the nascent corporate monopolies in energy and medicine, who were just beginning to consolidate their power. The widespread availability of non-commercial health knowledge was an obstacle to the establishment of a profitable, industrial-scale healthcare system. Anderson's teachings, particularly in his seminal works like Ancient Magic, 1895, and Philosophy of Occultism, 1897, focused on empowering individuals. He demonstrated that people could regulate their internal nerve force without needing external products or therapies. This fundamental principle, that the human brain is a bioelectrical receiver connected to a cosmic focus, directly undermined the emerging pharmaceutical business model. If individuals could achieve health autonomy, the burgeoning drug industry would face a significant hurdle in monetizing human suffering and illness. Beyond physical health, Anderson's curriculum included advanced techniques for mental self-mastery. He taught citizens how to shield their minds from hypnotic induction and atmospheric manipulation, empowering them against institutional control. Industrialists and emerging power brokers recognized the inherent danger of a population possessing such decentralized health and mental independence. A self-aware, self-regulated populace would be exceedingly difficult to manage, manipulate, and, crucially, to monetize for their expanding commercial enterprises, sparking a quiet alarm among the elite. The convergence of etheric physics, mind science, and natural mineral therapies created a comprehensive, self-sufficient paradigm that corporate interests found impossible to patent or control. This unpatentable model of health and well-being was an economic threat of immense proportions. The inability to commodify these vital self-mastery techniques accelerated institutional plans for academic standardization, designed to dismantle such independent knowledge centers. This financial imperative would soon reshape the entire landscape of American science and medicine. Historical records from before 1900 reveal a fascinating prioritization within medical and psychological institutions: vital self-mastery over commercial dependence. This was the prevailing ethos in many independent colleges, including Anderson's. They focused on empowering the individual's intrinsic healing capabilities, a stark contrast to the future model of external intervention and product reliance. This emphasis on internal control represented a financial threat to those who envisioned a vast, profitable industry built on selling solutions rather than teaching self-sufficiency. Professor L.H. Anderson's influence was not minor, it was substantial and widespread. His teachings offered a path to health and mental acuity that bypassed the commercial mechanisms being built by industrial giants. He democratized scientific knowledge, placing the power of healing and self-mastery directly into the hands of individuals. This autonomy, however, was incompatible with the emerging vision of a centralized, controlled, and profitable corporate academic complex. The stage was set for a dramatic confrontation, where independent thought would collide with monumental financial power. In the bustling intellectual landscape of the late 19th century, Professor L.H. Anderson emerged as a prominent figure, championing a radical vision of human potential. His 1895 treatise, Ancient Magic, followed by the equally groundbreaking 1897 Philosophy of Occultism, presented a paradigm-shifting concept: the human body as a self-sustaining electrical system. Anderson taught that individuals possess the innate ability to regulate their nerve force and achieve profound healing without reliance on external commercial products, fundamentally challenging the nascent medical-industrial complex. This teaching was revolutionary. Anderson posited that the human brain functioned as a sophisticated bioelectrical receiver, intricately connected to a universal, cosmic focus of energy. This perspective directly undermined the burgeoning pharmaceutical industry's emphasis on chemical interventions and external remedies. If individuals could tap into this innate bioelectrical capacity, the need for patented drugs and medical procedures would significantly diminish, posing a direct threat to the profitability model of emerging corporate giants. Furthermore, Anderson's curriculum extended beyond physical health. He equipped his students with practical methods to shield their minds from what he termed hypnotic induction and atmospheric manipulation. This empowerment of individual mental autonomy was a profound concern for industrialists. A populace adept at critical thought and resistant to external influence presented a significant challenge to systems of control and monetization, making them difficult to manage, manipulate, and ultimately profit from effectively. The convergence of etheric physics, which explored the subtle energies of the universe with mind science and natural mineral therapies, created a robust and competing health paradigm. Crucially, this holistic approach was inherently non-patentable. There was no proprietary drug, no exclusive technology that corporate interests could acquire and monopolize. This unpatentable threat accelerated institutional efforts to standardize academic curricula and consolidate control over scientific discourse, directly targeting independent thought. From 1904, a dramatic shift began. Corporate philanthropic foundations, notably the Carnegie Foundation and Rockefeller's General Education Board, commenced a strategic injection of unprecedented capital into selected university departments. These substantial financial endowments were not without strings. They were explicitly conditional, mandating that universities adopt a materialist, chemical-based curriculum, particularly within their medical and physics faculties. This effectively steered academic research away from etheric concepts and towards commercially viable, patentable discoveries. The culmination of this restructuring was the highly influential 1910 Flexner Report. This report, ostensibly an objective assessment of medical education, served as the primary tool for standardization. It systematically closed numerous non-compliant institutions, particularly those that embraced holistic or ether-based philosophies. University charters were revoked, and independent medical colleges, including Anderson's Chicago College of Psychotherapeutics, were stripped of their legal operating rights, often with minimal due process and devastating speed. In the wake of Flexner's directives, a concerted effort was made to reclassify entire fields of study. Ether-based physics, once a respectable area of scientific inquiry, and electromagnetic mind science were deliberately branded as occultism and pseudoscience within new academic guidelines. This redefinition wasn't accidental. It was a calculated move to discredit and marginalize any knowledge system that challenged the emerging materialist paradigm, ensuring that future generations of scientists would dismiss these concepts outright. The impact on academic discourse was profound. Within a single generation, medical and scientific students were meticulously trained to view atmospheric electrical consciousness and the etheric principles Anderson championed as absurd superstitions. This ideological shift was so pervasive that it fundamentally altered the trajectory of scientific research for decades, channeling intellectual resources into areas aligned with corporate interests and effectively erasing alternative scientific lineages from public memory. Concurrently with the academic restructuring, a systematic campaign of library scrubbing began. University libraries and municipal archives across the United States received directives to withdraw Anderson's textbooks and correspondence courses. Physical copies of seminal works like Ancient Magic, Magnetism, and Psychical Forces were not merely relegated to obscure shelves. They were actively removed from circulation, delisted from catalogue indexes, and in many cases permanently disposed of, rendering them inaccessible to the public. The National Institute of Science, once a vibrant hub of independent inquiry in the majestic Chicago Masonic Temple, was forcibly dismantled. Its laboratories, equipment, and records were cleared out, leaving no trace of its groundbreaking work. This physical eradication was mirrored by an archival vacuum. Biographical entries for L.H. Anderson were conspicuously omitted from standard 20th century encyclopedias, effectively creating a historical black hole where his significant contributions once stood, solidifying his erasure. Despite copyright records from the 1890s confirming widespread sales and distribution of Anderson's works, post-1915 academic literature acts as if he and his institute never existed. This collective amnesia is not coincidental. It's evidence of a deliberate, sustained effort to suppress a competing narrative. The silence from mainstream academia speaks volumes, creating a historical anomaly that demands closer scrutiny and an explanation for such a comprehensive and targeted omission. The pressure to erase Anderson's legacy extended even to niche communities. Even underground spiritualist and occult journals, which typically championed alternative thought, were reportedly pressured to cease cataloguing his works. This widespread censorship demonstrates the reach and determination of the forces at play, indicating a broad and coordinated campaign to eliminate any platform or mention of his theories, ensuring his complete disappearance from public and historical discourse across the board. Yet against all odds, remnants survive. Original surviving editions from the 1890s, bearing the distinctive Masonic Temple publication stamp, stand as irrefutable proof of the magnitude and legitimacy of Anderson's early institute. These physical artifacts serve as tangible evidence, challenging the fabricated narrative of his non-existence and allowing us to reconstruct the true historical record, revealing the sheer audacity of the attempted erasure. Further reinforcing this narrative are archival financial records, which explicitly detail the endowment conditions imposed by early 20th century corporate trusts on university boards. These documents reveal the precise mechanisms of control, demonstrating how funding was leveraged to dictate academic curricula and research directions, ensuring compliance with a specific materialist agenda. The money trail clearly points to a deliberate orchestration of academic change. Remarkably, modern scientific advancements in bioelectromagnetism and quantum biology are now validating many of Anderson's core assertions regarding atmospheric biofield interactions. What was once dismissed as pseudoscience is gaining renewed scientific credence, underscoring the foresight of Anderson's work and highlighting the tragic loss of decades of potential research due to corporate interference. Contemporary science is slowly catching up to his early 20th century insights. The story of L.H. Anderson is a stark reminder that scientific history was not an organic progression of discovery, but rather an intentionally directed narrative. His suppression reveals how vital human potential and alternative paradigms were deliberately stifled to secure corporate control over health, energy, and knowledge itself. It's a testament to how profoundly economic interests can shape intellectual landscapes, altering what is considered truth. Today, these preserved manuscripts, carefully guarded in rare private vaults, stand as irrefutable proof, not just of Anderson's genius, but of the science that was stolen from the public domain. The evidence is overwhelming and clear. L.H. Anderson's name was not merely forgotten by accident or oversight. It was systematically scrubbed from history, a deliberate act executed to protect and facilitate a multi-billion-dollar industrial shift that continues to impact us today. Imagine a vibrant, intellectual landscape in the 1890s, far removed from today's corporate-dominated academic institutions. Independent thinkers and scientists like Professor L.H. Anderson operated freely. His National Institute of Science, nestled within Chicago's majestic Masonic Temple, was a beacon of unconventional knowledge. This era was a golden age for autonomous research, where innovative minds explored uncharted territories without the constraints of corporate funding or predefined dogma. Anderson's work resonated with thousands, offering a revolutionary perspective on human potential. The shift began subtly, a trickle of capital becoming a flood. Beginning in 1904, powerful corporate philanthropic foundations, spearheaded by Carnegie and Rockefeller, injected unprecedented sums into selected university medical and physics departments. This wasn't merely charity. It was strategic investment with a clear agenda, quietly reshaping the future of American science from within its most esteemed institutions. The independent spirit of inquiry faced a new, well-funded adversary. These financial endowments, seemingly benevolent, came with stringent conditions. Universities eager for funding were compelled to adopt a new materialist and chemical-based curriculum. This mandate effectively choked out any academic pursuit that strayed from the approved scientific paradigm, including the very ether-based models Anderson championed. The price of progress, it seemed, was conformity, and the independent thought of the previous era was swiftly being deemed archaic. The culmination of this restructuring arrived with the infamous 1910 Flexner Report. This document, ostensibly a reform of medical education, became a powerful instrument of control. It systematically targeted and closed non-compliant institutions, revoking the charters of countless independent and etheric colleges across the nation. What started as a financial incentive now became a regulatory hammer, reshaping medical practice and academic freedom forever. For Professor Anderson's Chicago College of Psychotherapeutics and dozens of similar independent institutes, the impact was immediate and devastating. Operating rights once secured were stripped away almost overnight. Their methods, previously respected and widely practiced, were suddenly deemed illegitimate. This wasn't just a change in academic policy. It was a targeted dismantling of an entire scientific ecosystem, executed with chilling efficiency and legal precision. The reclassification of ether-based physics and electromagnetic mind science was critical. These fields, once subjects of serious inquiry, were deliberately rebranded as occultism and pseudoscience within the new academic guidelines. This semantic shift wasn't accidental. It was a calculated move to discredit and marginalize an entire body of knowledge, effectively banishing it from mainstream scientific discourse and stigmatizing anyone who dared to pursue it. With this reclassification came a new generation of medical and scientific students. They were systematically trained to view atmospheric electrical consciousness and vital energy as absurd superstitions, remnants of an unenlightened past. The robust scientific inquiry of the previous century was now presented as folly, instilling a deep-seated bias that persists even today. This educational indoctrination solidified the new corporate-backed scientific paradigm. But the restructuring went beyond curriculum and classification. It targeted the very access to information. University libraries and municipal archives across the United States received directives to withdraw Anderson's textbooks and correspondence courses. This was an active, coordinated campaign to remove historical evidence, ensuring that future generations would never encounter his work or the ideas it contained, severing a vital link to a suppressed past. Physical copies of works like Anderson's Ancient Magic, Magnetism, and Psychical Forces were not just reshelved, they were removed from circulation entirely, and their catalogue indexes purged. This erasure was meticulous, designed to leave no trace. Imagine the painstaking effort involved in such a widespread physical removal, a silent burning of inconvenient knowledge, executed under the guise of academic reform and modernization. The National Institute of Science, once a vibrant hub of learning within the majestic Masonic Temple, was forcibly dismantled. Its laboratory equipment, which had facilitated groundbreaking atmospheric ether experiments, was cleared out. The physical space, once buzzing with intellectual curiosity, was rendered empty. This wasn't merely a closure, it was an obliteration of a tangible scientific presence, leaving a void where pioneering research once flourished. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of this systematic erasure was the deliberate omission of L.H. Anderson's biographical entries from standard 20th century encyclopedias. This created a total archival vacuum, making it seem as if he and his extensive work simply never existed. For a figure who taught tens of thousands and published widely, this absence is profoundly unnatural, a clear indicator of a controlled historical narrative. Copyright records from the 1890s unequivocally confirm the widespread sales and distribution of Anderson's publications. Yet, post-1915 academic literature acts as if Anderson and his institute were phantom entities, never having contributed to scientific discourse. This disconnect between verifiable historical fact and the constructed academic narrative reveals the sheer scale of the intended historical revision, a true gaslighting of scientific history. The erasure was so thorough that even underground spiritualist and occult journals, typically bastions of alternative thought, were pressured to cease cataloguing his works. This indicates a pervasive and far-reaching influence, extending beyond mainstream academic circles into the fringes of intellectual inquiry. The campaign to silence Anderson was comprehensive, leaving virtually no corner of public discourse untouched. But history, like energy, cannot be entirely destroyed. It can only be suppressed. Original surviving editions from the 1890s, bearing the authentic Masonic Temple publication stamp, stand as irrefutable proof. These rare artifacts attest to the magnitude and legitimacy of Anderson's early institute, whispering stories of a forgotten era to those who seek them out, undeniable evidence against the corporate orchestrated narrative. Furthermore, archival financial records explicitly detail the endowment conditions imposed by these early 20th century corporate trusts on university boards. These documents are the smoking gun, revealing the precise mechanisms by which academic freedom was exchanged for capital, and how scientific direction was subtly, yet firmly, seized. The paper trail confirms the strategic manipulation of higher education. Modern advancements in bioelectromagnetism and quantum biology now strikingly validate Anderson's core assertions regarding atmospheric biofield interactions. What was once dismissed as pseudoscience is now finding resonance in cutting-edge research, suggesting that Anderson was not a charlatan, but a scientist ahead of his time. This contemporary vindication adds weight to the argument of a deliberately suppressed past. The story of L.H. Anderson is a profound testament that scientific history was intentionally directed, a narrative meticulously crafted to suppress vital human potential for corporate control. His name wasn't forgotten by accident. It was systematically scrubbed to protect a multi-billion-dollar industrial shift, a shift whose echoes still reverberate in our health and energy systems today. The evidence is clear. In the wake of this academic restructuring, the attack on independent science wasn't just theoretical. It reached into the very bastions of public knowledge. Libraries, university and municipal archives across the nation received directives. Anderson's groundbreaking textbooks and correspondence courses, once widely available, were now marked for removal. This was a deliberate act of historical cleansing, aimed at severing any public memory of his work and its profound implications. Imagine the scale of this operation. Physical copies of works like Ancient Magic, Magnetism, and Psychical Forces, which detailed methods for self-mastery and energy work, vanished. They were removed from shelves, their catalogue entries deleted, creating a void where knowledge once thrived. This wasn't a slow fade into obsolescence. It was an active, orchestrated erasure, targeting the very bedrock of intellectual accessibility for countless citizens who had previously sought out Anderson's teachings. Anderson's physical institution, the National Institute of Science, which had once buzzed with activity within the iconic Chicago Masonic Temple, also met a swift end. It was forcibly dismantled. Its laboratory equipment, the tools of a vibrant, alternative scientific inquiry, were cleared out, leaving behind an empty shell where profound discovery once occurred. The very space that hosted revolutionary atmospheric experiments was stripped bare, symbolic of the broader academic purge. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of this erasure was the systematic scrubbing of Anderson himself from the historical record. Biographical entries, once commonplace, were omitted from standard 20th century encyclopedias. It created an archival vacuum, as if the man, his institute, and his tens of thousands of students simply never existed. This profound silence in official histories speaks volumes about the power wielded by those who sought to redefine scientific legitimacy. Yet copyright records from the 1890s offer undeniable proof. They confirm widespread sales and distribution of Anderson's works, a testament to his institute's significant reach and popularity. However, post-1915 academic literature presents a starkly different picture, acting as if Anderson and his institute were mere phantoms. This glaring contradiction between actual historical prevalence and official academic omission underscores the deliberate nature of his disappearance. The silencing was so thorough that even independent spiritualist and occult journals, typically bastions of alternative thought, were pressured to cease cataloguing his works. This indicates a far-reaching and coordinated effort, extending beyond academic institutions into more fringe communities. The goal wasn't just to discredit Anderson, but to eradicate any trace of his theories from the collective consciousness, regardless of the source. But history, like energy, cannot be entirely destroyed. Original surviving editions from the 1890s, bearing the authentic Masonic Temple publication stamp, stand as irrefutable evidence. These rare texts prove the magnitude and legitimacy of Anderson's early institute. They are material receipts, defying decades of deliberate erasure, offering tangible proof of a scientific legacy that was once vibrant and influential. Further archival investigation reveals financial records from the early 20th century. These documents explicitly detail the endowment conditions imposed by corporate trusts like Carnegie and Rockefeller on university boards. The strings attached to this capital were clear: adopt a materialist curriculum, abandon etheric concepts. These receipts show a deliberate manipulation of academic direction, directly leading to the suppression of Anderson's work. Remarkably, modern scientific advancements in bioelectromagnetism and quantum biology are now validating many of Anderson's core assertions regarding atmospheric biofield interactions. What was once dismissed as pseudoscience is finding renewed scientific resonance. This contemporary validation casts the historical erasure in a new, critical light, suggesting that genuine scientific inquiry was suppressed for ulterior motives, rather than genuine intellectual fault. The story of L.H. Anderson is more than just a historical footnote. It's a stark reminder that scientific history itself can be intentionally directed. His preserved manuscripts, now residing in rare private vaults, stand as proof of the science stolen from the public domain. The evidence is clear. Anderson's name wasn't forgotten by accident. It was systematically scrubbed to protect a multi-billion-dollar industrial shift, a legacy of deliberate intellectual suppression.